going on, guys? So I thought it'd be interesting to talk about forgiveness today. It's one of the more tragic ways that us humans can weigh ourselves down and inhibit our own enjoyment of life. This is obviously a frequent subject of conversation in these videos, but I think it's very important to take note of and bring awareness to all of those things that we do to ourselves, often inadvertently, to slow us down, to make life more about suffering and less about joy. And a lack of forgiveness is a big one for many of us. Now, as far as I can tell, I've done some good work on working through resentments and lack of forgiveness in my own life, and it's definitely a freeing thing. So I want to pass on what I know about forgiving other people and why I have chosen to forgive people who have done me seemingly wrong, that I have built up resentments over. Why it's a good move to do that, why it's vital for you guys to, if you hold a grudge against somebody or you feel that someone's done you wrong and you can't forgive, how key and how crucial it is for you to take the courageous step of working through it and dropping that lack of forgiveness and finding a way to forgive. And given that a lot of my content, a lot of my subject matter, and my mission in life is to help you guys come to life and to experience life through a kind of joyful lens and a means to enjoy yourself and a means to be more alive as you go through life. Forgiveness and lack of forgiveness, I think, is a really important area of conversation to work through. So I'm going to give you my couple of points on what I've done to work my way through personal resentments, how it's worked for me, what does work, what doesn't work, and why it's worth doing. So when we walk around with a weight on our shoulders in the form of a thought that we have about somebody else that we haven't forgiven, maybe you were bullied at school, maybe you had some abusive experiences in your youth, maybe you were betrayed by a partner or whatever it is, or you had a difficult breakup and you can't figure out why it happened and you still hold a sort of a grudge against that person. And because of that, because you can't let go, because you allow that person to live in your head rent-free, as they say, and that you allow those thoughts to eat away at you, the tragic aspect of that is, on top of you having had someone do wrong to you, which is a suffering in and of itself, you are now carrying on and perpetualizing, if that's a word, you are allowing that suffering to continue through your own lack of forgiveness. So it's very important to understand why forgiving is key. And you know what it's like. We hold grudges and we hold it in our heads and we plan our revenges and we project a kind of hatred and a dislike and a fear ultimately on other people. And we also might find that our negative experiences that have come from one person might be transferred across to other people, and we might see our hatred for one person multiplied across lots of other people because our distrust is kind of infected and flooded into our other it's kind of affected our perspective of life, which isn't a good thing. It's a weight that can multiply. So forgiveness, how to do it, and first of all, why to do it. So I'm rambling a little bit here. It's a Sunday evening, so I'm a little bit slower today, but a lot of you might be thinking, well, why should I forgive? That person did me wrong. That person was brutal. That person was abusive. That person was a criminal. You can't go around forgiving people who did wrong. That's a cuck move. That's a pathetic move on your behalf. Well, the thing about forgiveness is it doesn't mean necessarily that what they did was excusable. Forgiveness is simply about forgiving. It's about forgiving someone for having done wrong. It is not about permitting someone to continue to do wrong. It is not about, allowing them off the hook type thing, but you are forgiving them. You are forgiving them for that particular slip that they went through in their lives. So that's one way of kind of starting to bring some light, some compassion to the whole thing, is to realize that people are always doing what they consider to be the thing that makes the most sense in their own minds at the time. Now, they may have committed a crime, they may have done something really terrible, but what's helped me when it comes to forgiveness is realizing that everyone is doing the best they can given the thinking that they have in the moment. And that's just the reality of our human brains, is that we're all taking what looks to be the right decision. No matter how insane it looks like from an outsider's perspective, what they were doing at the time made total sense to them. And it doesn't necessarily mean that deep down they have a soul, they lack a soul, or they're evil, or there's something wrong with them. It's simply a reflection of their state of mind in that moment. And we've seen people, seemingly lovely people, great people, do horrendous things in a moment of slip, in a moment of insanity. And what looks like insanity is always a moment where somebody believed their own incorrect thinking, their own unhelpful thinking at the time. So see if you can apply that understanding to whatever you had a negative experience with in your own life. You know, who did you wrong? You may have to dig back into the past just for a little bit to kind of make some sense of it, because ultimately, as I always talk about, understanding, compassion, those two things, which are essentially the same thing, is the healing light that kind of shines a light on the darkness and allows you to make peace. So how can you bring understanding to the event that you lack forgiveness on? How might that person have been acting in a way that made total sense to them in their own minds at the time? How can you, is there a way through in that? Is there a way through in finding some compassion for that person? I know it might sound crazy to some. It's like, how can I be compassionate for what they did? But can you find compassion? Is it possible that they were acting in a way that made sense to them, and then in that way you can find a parallel between you and them? There's a connection that can be made as human beings. Haven't you in the past done things that you now regret? Haven't you in the past done things that you acted on that made total sense to you at the time that now looking back look ridiculous and shameful? Well, they might be thinking the same thing. And by seeing that, we can sort of reveal the humanity behind our actions. And we are humans, we have the power of imagination, and sometimes we misuse that imagination, and maybe we're under the influence, maybe whatever it is. That doesn't even need to have been the case for you to still be able to forgive. We can allow very pernicious thoughts into our minds. We don't know what the state of that person was at the time. Maybe they were going through some serious hardship. Maybe they had all kinds of factors that were at play that you didn't realize at the time. So again, this is all about sort of kneading out that understanding, that compassion. The more compassion you can bring, the more understanding. Let's start with understanding. It doesn't have to be compassion or forgiveness yet, but start with rational understanding. And rational understanding starts with an understanding of psychology. You know, we're always doing the best we can given our thinking. So this is why I encourage you guys to be conscious, to develop consciousness and presence as much as possible, because the more present we are, the less we have on our minds, and the more rational our behavior becomes, the more at peace, the more creative, the more joyful, when we're not wound up in this identity of false thinking. And that might very well have been what was happening with that person who did you wrong, is that they were wrapped up in a false identity that had come out of maybe their own abuse experiences, whatever it was. So that's really the thing. To kind of wrap it up within the 10-minute video is see if you can find some understanding around the experience and the context in which it happened, and to use that understanding to bring light and compassion to whatever it was that happened. And then just to sort of wrap up, as a reminder how key it is to find forgiveness for people who have seemingly done you wrong, is that you're the one that's going to suffer the most ultimately if you're allowing some hardship that someone's done to you to kind of fester in your own mind. It's going to pollute and affect your own quality of life today. So what you're allowing is your past to bridge a gap between your past has a bridge between now and the past, which is not ideal. You want to be able to see things in such a way that your present is firmly detached from your past. Your past shouldn't in any way influence, dictate your present behavior. And if it does, you're a prisoner to your own past, to your own bad experiences, seemingly bad experiences. And the way to detach isn't through any special, fixing work. There's nothing to process. There's nothing to rewire. You simply need to see things in a new light. And one of the helpful ways that I've seen to be able to detach past from present is to just look at it, take a fresh look, and see that there's no possible way for your past, the things people have done to you, the things they've said to you, to influence your current behavior. There is absolutely no connection. What they did happened in the past, and what people say cannot have any influence on your self-esteem, on your self-worth. There's no connection. You might feel that there is because you think of it in that way. So the only thing linking the past to your present actions, if you think about it, is your thinking. It's your inability to drop the thoughts that connect the two. As soon as we can see that it's just thought that's getting in the way, we are instantly free from any past influence on our lives. So again, past is an illusion, and illusion is created in the mind. Illusion is a thought product, and we are free from the past when we realize that the past is an illusion. And the past, of course, encapsulates all of those moments with other people that you had difficulties with. So you're actually enlivening an illusion when you think about it. So you don't need to entertain that illusion. You don't need to entertain any aspect of your past. As soon as that illusion is seen for what it is, an illusion, I write about this in my book Illusory, which I recommend you read. As soon as you realize the illusion of the illusion, you're free, and those people don't need to affect you anymore. So there's probably two sides to this. One is to sort of take a bit of a deeper look at what happened and see if you can bring some understanding to that, and see if you can bring some compassion to both of you. You can forgive yourself, of course, and you can forgive the other person. There's a lot of moments in my own life where I struggled with forgiving even myself. So that's a really huge aspect of this as well. It's finding forgiveness for what you did. What were you doing that was rational? And you'll find in further looking into this that everyone involved, including yourself, in that experience, in that event, was doing things in a pure rational way. It made total sense to you and that person to do what they did. And so how can you blame them for that? Okay, so I'll leave you with that. I might do a little bit more exploration around forgiveness, because when you lack forgiveness, I'm sure you've experienced, can be a real weight on your shoulders. It can be extremely, it sounds like an airy-fairy thing that, it just doesn't sound like it needs to be prioritized, but actually it really does. The idea of you know what I mean. The idea of forgiveness sounds a little bit kind of theoretical and like, okay, well that's not a big priority. Right now my priority is making money, is success, is relationship success. But of course, forgiveness wraps up itself into all of those things. If you can't forgive someone from your past, you're inadvertently allowing those people and those memories to affect your fluidity in the present moment. So any questions on that, let me know. I'm still figuring this all out as I go, in a way, but I have found that through sort of doing this work and bringing understanding to some of these events that have caused me a lot of pain, I found it very freeing. It's a very relieving thing to do, and to walk around with a lack of forgiveness and a kind of resentment is not a healthy thing, and is going to block you from truly enjoying your life. So that's it from me, guys. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to this channel, like the video, and leave a comment. Take care, guys.